Hi everybody, welcome to my channel. Today an art journal tutorial. This one is close to real time, not sped up as much. So I'm starting on a background that I broke in the Break the Blank page 2 series. I have 3 left, so after this there'll be 2. And this one has blue and copper. And I sprays through a stencil. Now, this is giving me my color scheme and some of the patterning, and it's just reading very vintage to me. So I grabbed some of Tim Holtz, I believe this is called typography tissue papers, and I'm just going to go with the feel of what the broken page was. Now, I was really in my head, couldn't figure out what to create, and that's a great time to grab a page that you've broken previously. It kind of pushes you out of the gate and gets you started, and you already have something, so you go with that. So I'm starting this out, and I'm going to go with the color scheme, and so I don't have to make that decision, and I'm going with the vintage feel from the stencils, and I'm just going to play that up. I do not know at this point what I'm going to use as a focal image. And sometimes I do that deliberately when I'm too much in my head and I'm trying to overthink things, plan out things. So I'm using fluid matte medium to glue this down. They go translucent, so you still see the patterning and the color from behind, but you've added this layer. It's pushed back some of that stuff that's in the background, and now you have a second layer. And mixed media and art journaling is all about developing these interesting layers. So I give this a dry and I cut off the excess. I'm loving the colors. This is a complementary color scheme, kind of orange and blue. They're across each other from the color wheel, on the color wheel. So I want to play up that blue. So I go through my stash and I pull some coffee filters, some papers, some collage paper, some gel prints, and this was pretty close. It's amazing to me how I always seem to have that perfect piece of paper. And that's why it's really important as a beginner that you build your stash. And I'm just ripping these strips, getting some interesting shapes, and I'm going to place them. Now, yes, it's going on top of some of that tissue paper. It, in effect, is pushing the tissue paper down so it looks like it's peeking through. Again, layer number 3, right? I could take paint and randomly put this paint on there. And if you don't have the perfect gel print or scrapbook paper or collage paper, you can grab some paint, mix it up, try to get that color as close to it as possible, and just make it specific for this. But when you have stuff in your stash, it's pretty easy to speed along the art journaling process. This page took about 45 minutes complete. I'm gluing this down with gel medium because the paper is a little bit thicker, and whenever the paper's thicker, I like the gel matte medium as opposed to the fluid. Those little excess, I keep a bin on my desk, and all of those go in there, and then every once in a while, I just will pull out what's in the bin, and that's going to break the page. Now, it's really important that you cut off the excess before you go to the next step, because you want to see the page. And I'm absolutely loving how this works, how this all came together. I like that pop of blue. So in the stage where I broke the page. And FYI, there will be a link in the iCards in the top right hand corner. There's an eye. If you click on that, you can find it. Or you could search for Break the Blank Page on my YouTube channel. Now I'm pushing heavy gesso through the stencil. And as you can see, I'm getting a very grungy effect. But grungy and vintage go together well. And this has pushed back, again, those layers. So now you have 4 different layers. So we added some blue. So now I want to add that coppery burnt sienna. And I grab burnt sienna, I water it down a little bit, put it on the page and spray it and let it go into the texture paste. I wanted to get it caught in the nooks and the crannies. Now, rookie mistake here. I didn't let the heavy gesso dry as much as it should, and then I'm spraying water on it. So it gets a little gummy. No worries, just a whole lot more vintagey than I wanted. And I'm playing with it, doing some drippage here. I just want it to be very organic. I'm not too pre-planned. If I get too much, I'm kind of wiping it off. I just want to add a little bit more of that color. And because it wasn't dry, I'm drying it before I move on and go to the next stage. Now I grab my copper paint because I think, okay, I'm going to bump that up. I like the bling, and I put the stencil back down and I'm stenciling with the copper. Then I go on top of some of the white gesso parts, some I go on the page. But I'm not liking it. So I'm wiping it off because you know what? Nothing's forever. You can always go back. And then I just try to put it just on the stenciling. And I left this in because, truth be known, not every decision you make is a winner or is going to give you the effect that you think it's going to. But you have to experiment. You have to try different things. So I grab some white paint and I stencil over it, and that pushes it back, it mutes it, and it makes me happy. And I splatter with the burnt sienna just to get that color throughout the whole background. So now that the background is pretty much done, I go through my napkins because I have no idea what I'm going to put on there. And I'm looking for something that has that blue and that burnt sienna, reddish brown color. And I find this snowman napkin. I'll link this napkin and the stencil and sentiment pack in the description box below. I cut out the part that I want, and I pull off the 2 excess layers. And I'm going to glue this down onto a piece of copy paper because if I glued it onto that background, you would see the background through the snowman. The snowman's very white and pale. This whole thing is very light. So I don't want to see it. I want to keep the colors true. So I'm gluing it onto copy paper. That gives it some stability, will preserve the colors. And then I'm just going to cut this out. And it's really easy to cut out when it's supported by the copy paper. So now I want to figure out where I want to put that. I could put it on the end. I don't like putting it in the middle. I like the idea of being able to see all that blue. This is a very neutrally background. Neutrally, good word. So I really want to see all those 4 sections of the blue. So I'm going to put it off to the right. I just like how it looks better. Now, as soon as I picked this napkin, the song Silent Night was going through my head. And so I picked the phrase, all is calm, and I did it up in a whole bunch of sentiments. So I'm going to cut those out. I'm not going to make you watch. And then I'm going to addition all of them. That's the process that I usually go through when I'm undecided. So here's the one, and I like the font. It's bold, it stands out against the background, but the scale was too big, so I shrunk it down. I like the smaller one better. I don't want the sentiment to compete with the focal image. This script one, it's nice and bold, and it seems to fit the feel of the page, which surprises me because I didn't think the script one with the bubble cut was going to work. This font I like because it's kind of triangular and very symmetrical, like you've got um, the stenciling on there. It seems to work with that. I typed up some here on black, and while I like the black background of the letters because it makes it stands out, it just doesn't seem to fit the feel of the page, the vintage. So I'm thinking it's a toss-up between those two. And I'm going to choose the script one. And then before I decide, by gluing it down, before I make that commitment, I'm testing it out on the other side. Does it look better? Now that I have all my components, and no, I like it better here. So I grab the gel medium and I'm gluing down these components. And I'm giving a good coat of the gel medium on top because when I shade or do anything else, I want to have a non-porous surface. So as I start gluing down this script font sentiment, I think to myself, it would make it work better if I do some script stamp in the background. So I grab my black archival ink and I'm stamping some script into the background. You want all the components to be there and have a purpose. They have to connect in some way to something else. So that done, I'm back to gluing the sentiment down. I think this would make a great Christmas card. I have another napkin like this, so I can use this colors and recreate it and do a Christmas card. I grabbed my General's charcoal pencil. This is the extra soft one, and I'm edging the page. And pay attention to the script, how as soon as we start darkening the edge, adding that black, the script seems to fit so much better. And I'm smudging the end. So now the page is framed, the black of the sentiments is standing out. So I grab my Inktense blocks, and what I'm going to do is add a wash of color to parts of the napkin focal image. I want to bump up those colors. They're very faded, and I want the focal image to stand out more. So I'm giving it a wash of, here I'm using burnt sienna or a color similar. You can mix this with gel medium and paint it on. You can mix some gesso in to get a different tone. And I'm just doing a wash, which is different from when I've done painted over napkins and I get a painterly effect. There I'm putting more paint on. This is just adding a little bit of color just to deepen what's already there. To add some of the white back in, I'm using white gesso here. That's giving the highlights. Now the napkin, it was kind of a watercolor um, picture, so it's not very precise. So I don't have to be exact here. So I'm giving this a good dry because remember it's a napkin. If it gets too wet, you might have an issue. Now I grab my charcoal pencil, and this one is the medium, and I'm going to go and sketch around, trace around it. Oh, I forgot to do the red, and I want to pop up that bright red. So here I'm using the charcoal pencil and sketchily going around to outline it. And I'm hoping that this is going to make this focal image stand out enough. So I'm smudging it a little bit because I'm thinking to myself that this isn't bringing it out as much as I'd like. I like what's happening, but it's not giving me enough. So I'm going on the outside of the focal image. I did some on the napkin. Now I'm going on the outside to basically shade around it. While I think about what I want to do there and if I'm happy, I grab my stylus and some red paint and I'm just putting dots on this black font. This is bringing out this, I'm using red, which is bringing out the red that's on his scarf and toque and the reddish brown of the fox. Remember, again, we want everything to work together. Word of caution, when you use the stylus to put paint on, like dots, you have to make sure you give it time to dry so you don't smudge it and smear it. And I splattered with white because I wanted this to look frosty. It's a snowman, it's winter. I thought I was done. As I started to clean up, I decided, I want this focal image to stand out a little bit more. So I'm resorting to my floating acrylic shading technique using my angle brush and black acrylic paint. I'm giving this a shadow around the outside edge of my focal image and my sentiment. When you're in my channel, there is a search bar, And if you put in there shading or snowman or collage papers, it will do a search of the videos in my channel alone. So if you're ever looking for a video because I forgot to link it, or you want to find something, that's a way of searching within someone's channel. You don't have to go scrolling through all their videos to find it. And I edge around the outside page too, using my shading acrylic shading technique. So I'm adding a little bit more just to bring out all the elements. Was it necessary? Maybe not, but it made me happy. And I come in and I'm using white gesso here, and I'm adding some highlights using the same technique. And then I decide, oh, let's see what happens here. The letters with the bubble cutting looked a little too white and stark for my vintage background and vintage feel page. So by doing this, it kind of smudged it, made it a little bit more grungy, and made it fit in. And then I decide, look at this, the gesso that I put through the stencil, and I shade around it, and I bring out the triangular shape, the diamond shape, and I love it. That was the missing piece. Like, just add it to it. We worked so hard to put that gesso on there, and this just, in my mind, really made it. If you're on Instagram, follow me on Instagram at CreativeKady. And if you are looking for a Facebook group, you can join my Face group, Art Journaling and Mixed Media Creations. Thank you so much for joining me. Stay and watch to the end. You can see some close-ups of this page. And you can see all that vintagey goodness, all the layers. And as always, until next time, go get creative.